Senate's stuck. We've had an enormous number of nominations that have tried to be able to work through this body. Quite frankly, it's the same number that we have in every time it's the first term for a new president to be able to work its way through the body. But this time's different. And it's not just accidentally different, it's been intentionally different. I understand my Democratic colleagues have problems politically with President Trump. I get that, respectful, we have differences of opinion on that. But this time's been different. Every single nominee has been blocked. Every single nominee has required a vote for motion to proceed, 2 hours of debate, another vote. Current status where we are right now, to just do the nominees in our backlog where we currently sit right now, will take about 900 hours of floor time to be able to just do those. That doesn't include the ones that are coming next for the next nominations. We're stuck. If every single one of them requires this kind of time, the Senate's no longer functioning. So what we had proposed was a pretty straightforward proposal. That is that we actually can move nominees in small batches, let's say 15, once they come out of committee. So they've had vetting in committee, they've had a hearing in committee, they've passed out of committee, they're now coming to the floor. In the past, those individuals would then pass what's called en bloc, or by voice vote, or unanimous consent. It was very common to be en bloc. In fact, during President Biden's time, there were 277 nominees that moved en bloc. You know why? Because Republicans allowed them to be able to move en bloc. You know what's interesting? During President Trump's first term, more than 500 nominees moved en bloc. You know why? Because Democrats allowed them to move en bloc, because this was normal to be able to do. But now we're in a new political age where nothing seems to be normal. So we proposed a very simple thing, that this would be helpful to do what's called a standing rule. It would take 60 votes to be able to move this. And we would have a standing rule to say, here's how this could be done. Up to 15 out of a committee would come to the floor en bloc. We would have a single vote to be able to pass those 15, very similar to how it's been done in the past. It's just structured that way. This was an idea that percolated around for a while, and then it began to grow. And then we had multiple of our Democratic senators that came on board and said, that's a reasonable proposal. In fact, it's even similar to something that we proposed a couple of years ago for several members. So after a while of discussion, more and more Democrats came on board. And now we have a supermajority of members of this body right now to be able to vote on it today that are willing to say, let's vote on that. We have a supermajority. We have plenty of folks that are willing to be able to step up and to say, that's a reasonable thing to be able to do. The problem is, it takes consent to actually bring it to the floor. It's just a simple issue of, do we have the ability to be able to vote on this today? If we don't, we're stuck. Now, it only takes 60. We definitely have 60 votes in this body today to be able to pass it. What we don't have is consent to be able to actually bring it. And we've been asked, well, what if we just did it next week? Challenge is this body's just broken down trust. And so we're not confident it's not going to be a next week and a next week and a next week. In the meantime, we're still not moving nominees. We're still stuck. So we've asked a very simple thing. Let's move this idea today, where we know we have 60 of our colleagues ready to be able to pass it today in regular order in the process. We're just asking one thing. That is consent to be able to do it. I'm planning to bring that request for consent in just a moment. But I'd like to be able to yield time to my colleague, Senator Schatz from Hawaii, to be able to speak on this same issue, because he's also worked very hard on rules and trying to be able to make this Senate work. So with that, I would yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Hawaii.
Mr. President, he's right. He's asking for unanimous consent. And we don't have unanimous consent. We do not have unanimity. What we do have, and Senator Langford is right, is now a critical mass of people who are willing to entertain changes to the way that we process nominees. That's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. This would be the first major bipartisan rules reform, I think, in a political generation, maybe several political generations. And it is not your usual suspects of moderates who might be able to get you guys to 60, but a pretty wide swath of United States senators on the Democratic side to try to reform the rules on a bipartisan basis. And we are achingly close to doing this like adults. And it is not lost on me on 9/11 and after the terrible political assassination of Mr. Kirk that we have a special obligation to demonstrate that politics is a substitute for violence and not a precursor to violence. And we have to demonstrate that we can be adults. And so we were achingly close to a deal. But I am afraid that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have run out of patience. And I understand the overall argument about the number of nominees that are in a backlog. I understand that argument. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about they just want to go today. They want to leave today. People have flights today. It is Thursday, and it is not 5 p.m. And so, were we to work a weekend to try to land this airplane, that would be beneficial to the country, to the body, to Republicans and Democrats alike. We are actually very close. And Senator Langford knows that. And I think he's as frustrated as I am about how achingly close we are to behaving like adults. And I don't know who it is or what the dynamic was, but about an hour ago, everybody just said, I don't care how close we are. We're just going to do this because we're going to start to lose members. We're going to start to lose momentum. The weekend is hard. Maybe we're going to get yelled at from the left, and you're going to get yelled at from the right. And we just can't withstand that, so we just got to go through with it. It's a damn shame. And maybe this exercise builds a little muscle memory for at least exploring how to have a bipartisan negotiation. So maybe there's some silver lining to this. Maybe there's some understanding that this institution actually matters, especially in this polarized and divided time. But I have to tell you, I am deeply disappointed at the extent to which members on our side of the aisle and your side of the aisle put themselves in a position of some political peril to try to stabilize the country and be the ballast that everybody needs across America. And we were trending well. We were trending well. I know how negotiations go. They go up and down. They go sideways. They stall a bit. People get a little irritated. But we really were trending well. And I am legitimately shocked that we're like 94% of the way there and somebody just woke up and said, you know what, never mind. We're going to do the thing we were planning on doing originally. And so, hope springs eternal, but this is a deep disappointment, and it didn't have to be this way. All we had to do, and I'm going to offer this consent later, but I want everybody to understand what this consent means. I'm going to ask unanimous consent that the cloture vote upon reconsideration with respect to executive calendar S-Res 377 be at the time determined by the majority leader in consultation with the Democratic leader no earlier than Monday. And that if cloture is invoked upon reconsideration of the post-cloture time be deemed expired. What does that mean? It means that you would have kept your optionality to go nuclear on Monday and not lost a thing. The leader would have been able to go nuclear on Monday if negotiations never went anywhere, if they went sideways, if they tanked, and no time would have been lost. So the imperative to kind of get this done on a certain time frame, we tried to respect and said, fine, we'll just deem the 30 hours expired. We will accommodate your imperative to get this done, if you needed to get it done by the end of next week. And we said, sure, keep negotiations open. And that we ran a hotline on that, and it cleared our hotline. And we had some very difficult conversations with members who hate this idea. But just to keep the aperture open to negotiate and to preserve the majority's prerogative to move forward with some pace. And so we accommodated that. And I thought, great, we're trending well. We're going to wake up in the morning, we're going to get on some conference calls, and we're going to see whether there's a pathway. I don't know whether there would have been a pathway. But I know today that the majority party in the United States Senate decided to foreclose the possibility of bipartisanship, and that is a real disappointment to me.
Senator Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I missed the conversation on the floor.
You need consent. Speak.
Oh.
The senator needs
Can I
consent to
ask
speak.
Unanimous consent to speak. For 3 minutes or ish. Thank you. And thank you to my
Without
colleague
objection.
from Oklahoma. The issue we're addressing needs to be addressed. The nomination process is entirely broken. People are sick and tired of bringing their expertise to the Senate and basically being an automaton in a nomination factory. So that's why there's great sympathy to us working together to resolve this. I put forward a somewhat different version of the world from my colleague from Oklahoma, said, let's do a block of time where multiple people can be debated simultaneously. That alone speeds things up by 6 to 8 times because it's not 2 hours or 120 minutes per nominee. Let's create a motion where we go directly to that block of time so that we don't, and because of the block of time, you don't have to have cloture on it in order to vote. Let's speed up how we hold those votes. I felt we could get to wiping out the backlog through some of the agreements that were done before August and by accelerated consideration and preserve the ability to vote on each nominee. I had concerns about the en bloc because I think we have a constitutional responsibility if there is a bad apple to weigh in on that and be accountable to our constituents on whether we favor or disfavor that individual. So I proposed an amendment, and I do appreciate my colleague working to arrange to have a vote on that amendment that said 10 members in the minority or minority and majority could sign a petition to have someone pulled out of a group of 15 if they felt that person merited more scrutiny or presented particular problems. I heard about the kind of the distrust that might be used to dismantle an entire block of 15, so I'm open to modifications of that could address that. But I was one of the people who said, as written initially, I couldn't vote for unanimous consent to just adopt it. But to consider it on this floor, yes, I can vote for it to be considered on this floor. Because that's what we should be doing. We should be doing rules, ideas to this floor to be wrestled with in order to make this chamber work better. And so I appreciate that the plan wasn't to just try to get UC on the proposal, but to get UC to consider it. Why shouldn't we all agree to that? So I'm not sure where the reservation is, where the holdout. I heard that there are folks who like the idea of a supernova nuclear option and therefore want to blow up normal consideration of and standing order, of a new proposal standing order. But I guess having missed the presentation, if I missed it from the majority leader, I would say maybe we should take an hour and try to resolve that or adopt what my colleague has said to iron out the details over the weekend, because it's a big deal. It's a big deal to go nuclear. It's a big deal to adopt a new idea that hadn't been widely circulated until the last few days. So I cast my heart and my vote with the idea of let's try to figure this out. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Oklahoma.
I'm going to bring a unanimous consent request, but I would say I represent every single Republican is in agreement of this. Every single Republican was ready today to be able to move on what was an agreed upon bipartisan agreement, not by all, understanding that. But again, we have a supermajority of members of this body that are being blocked by a small group of the minority party saying they don't want to allow consent to vote on it, just to vote on it. So we're stuck. So as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of the Langford Resolution S-Res 384, which is at the desk. I further ask that there be up to 30 minutes of debate on the resolution equally divided between the two leaders or their designees. Further, that following the use or yielding back at that time, the Senate vote on an amendment from Senator Merkley, if offered, and following disposition of the Merkley amendment, the Senate vote on the resolution as amended, if amended, with no further intervening action or debate, with 60 affirmative votes required for adoption of the resolution.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Hawaii.
Mr. President, reserving the right to object, and I won't belabor the point except to say, if you've got 60, 65, 70 votes for something, like, just file cloture, right? That's what you do. If you've got the votes, you just sort of move through the process of taking the vote. What they're asking for is unanimity, and we don't have it. And so if you're interested in enacting this on a bipartisan basis, there's a process for doing that. It is available to you. But again, it's more a matter of running out of patience than running out of time. We're leaving probably this evening, and then we got Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Not off, I understand people work weekends, whatever, but not here, let's say. And then our first vote will be 5:30 on Monday. There is time. There's just no desire to go through the process, right? So it's true, I'm not actually sure that you would have 60 votes for that, but there's a way to test it, and that is to file cloture on a new standing order or a new resolution or whatever the procedural pathway is. What Senator Langford is asking us to do is to have unanimity for a rules change, to have the Senate not vote on individual nominations, right? At 15 at a time, and you got to go yes on all of them or no on all of them. And I don't love that idea, but I was willing to entertain it as a sort of matter of principle to try to sort of stabilize this body. But they've run out of patience, not run out of time, and so therefore I object. Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Hawaii.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the cloture vote upon reconsideration with respect to executive calendar number 1, S-Res 377, be at a time to be determined by the majority leader in consultation with the Democratic leader no earlier than Monday, September 15th. Further, that if cloture is invoked upon reconsideration, the post-cloture time be expired. Finally, that it be in order for the majority leader to make a point of order prior to the cloture vote upon reconsideration of executive calendar number 1, S-Res 377. This would buy us the time we need and not cost the leader anything.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President, reserving the right to
Chair
object.
recognizes the majority leader.
I would just say to my colleagues on the Democrat side, how much time is enough? How much time is enough? The proposal that we are voting on, or want to vote on, and just ask consent to get on, has been around for 2 years. Introduced by Democrats. They had a hearing in the Rules Committee. It's been around for 2 years. In fact, what we're supposed to vote on today is less expansive than the bill that was discussed in the Rules Committee. The Democrat Rules Committee, a proposal made by Democrats. We don't include judges in this. Your proposal did. We're asking you to vote on a Democrat proposal, and you're saying, no, we won't even vote on it. We won't even get on it. Give me a break. 2 years, not long enough? How about 8 months? 8 months of this. 8 months of this. Look at that chart. 0. Every president going back to 41, George H.W. Bush, has had a majority, a supermajority, of their nominees approved here in the Senate by unanimous consent or voice vote. Look at that. 98%. 98% for Bill Clinton. 90% for George W. Bush, 90% for President Obama, 65% for Trump 1, 57% for Biden, not trending in the right direction, which argues for everything that's being said here today about we need to fix a broken process. But that is an embarrassment. 0. Show the other chart. We got a second chart here. This is what we're talking about. We got to fix this, guys, and we've had plenty of time to do it. 8 months. 8 months. This is what we left on before the August break, was this issue. So now we are 6 weeks into it. We had all week, I've been saying all week, we're going to vote on this on Thursday, one way or the other. We're going to change this process in a way that gets us back to what every president prior has had when it comes to the way that these nominees are treated here in the United States Senate. By both sides, Republicans and Democrats, both presidents, Republicans and Democrats. That's the way it's been handled. Look at that. 0. President Biden had 530 of his nominees confirmed by voice vote or unanimous consent. This, ladies and gentlemen, has to be fixed. We offered you a proposal that had your fingerprints on it. It wasn't even your fingerprints. You initiated it. And all we're saying is, give us a chance to vote on it. And even some of your own members. Senator from Oregon said, I want an amendment. We said, fine. You can have an amendment vote. But we need to vote. We need to fix this. And yeah, we could drag it out over the weekend, and you could start adding more conditions and more ideas. The good idea fairy will start to circulate around here, and we'll have a whole bunch more conversations, and it will drag on. Nothing will get done. It's time to move. Time to quit stalling. Time to vote. Time to fix this place. And the ideal way to fix it would be in a bipartisan way. Democrats and Republicans coming together behind a proposal that makes all the sense in the world, and that both sides agree, frankly, is probably the right solution to do this. We looked at them all. We looked at all the options. We had some very good people who spent the month of August examining how to fix this process in a way that would get us to an outcome that preserved the institutional prerogatives of the Senate, that preserves advice and consent under the Constitution, but gets away from that embarrassing statistic and the fact that we are spending all our time. Do you guys like the fact that we're a personnel department? That the Senate spends 2/3 of its time on nominees? We've cast over 500 votes this year in the Senate, more than any Senate in history at this point in the term of the Senate. To finish just the nominees in the pipeline today, between now and the end of the year, we would have to cast another 600 votes, not to mention all the intervening time periods and the filing cloture and everything else. That's what this means, another 600 votes. We've cast over 500 in the first 7 months of this session. We'd have to cast more than that in the last 3.5 months just to get the pipeline cleared, which doesn't mean all the additional noms that are coming through, or judges. This is a broken process, folks. That's an embarrassment. That's what you gave us.
Question?
No, I won't yield. We're going to fix this. We're going to start to fix it today, I hope. And I would hope that when we have people in good faith put forward an offer, that you would at least let us get on that good offer. A solution that is bipartisan, initiated by Democrats 2 years ago, which has been talked about ad infinitum, ad nauseum, just this week alone, not to mention the 6 weeks going back to the end of the July work period. So, Mr. President, I object.
Objection is heard.
And I ask for the ayes and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The question is on the motion to reconsider. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Osterberg.